The office was cold and sterile, the hum of the overhead fluorescent lights echoing the chill in the air. Mr. Wright sat behind his imposing desk, a man who had been here less than 6 months, but already seemed to wield the power of decades. His posture relaxed, leaning back in his leather chair, fingers steepled as he looked at me with a mixture of condescension and certainty. "This school needs to modernize, Diana," he said, voice calm but firm. "Your methods are outdated. The board and I agree it's time for you to consider early retirement. We need fresh leadership to bring this district into the 21st century." I sat frozen for a moment, the words hitting me harder than I expected. 20 years, 2 full decades of my life dedicated to Westlake High, nurturing students, supporting teachers, building a community. And now it was as if none of it mattered. The achievements, the struggles, the late nights, and endless meetings reduced to a single phrase, outdated. I forced myself to speak, my voice steady, despite the turmoil inside. "Mr. Wright, I've poured my heart into this school. Our graduation rate has risen from 76% to 94% under my leadership. Over 80% of our students continue to higher education. I know every student by name. I know their stories, their struggles." He nodded as if acknowledging my words, but dismissing their weight. "That may be true, but the world is changing. The board wants rapid modernization. If you refuse to retire, we will implement a performance improvement plan. Documentation has already begun. Your latest evaluation showed significant concerns regarding your ability to adapt to new technology and modern teaching methods." I clenched the arms of the chair nails, digging into the fabric. Is this really about the students, or about making a mark? About making room for flashy tech and restructuring in your image? He smiled thinly. "It's about progress, Diana, something you seem unwilling to embrace." I swallowed hard, the sting of betrayal burning my throat. But I held my head high. "I need time to consider." He gave a patronizing nod. "You have until the weekend. The board is eager to proceed." As I left his office, I glanced back one last time. The man who barely knew this school thought he could erase 20 years of work with a few words. Little did he know his dismissive attitude would be his undoing. Outside, the late afternoon sun was setting, casting long shadows over the parking lot. I took a deep breath. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one I would write on my own terms. I stepped out of the director's office, my heart heavy and confused. Betrayal and loss washed over me in waves, weakening my limbs. 20 years, a long journey of pouring my heart into students, teachers, and countless meaningful stories. I remember my early days as a young English teacher, passionate and full of hope. The first students I taught are now successful adults, many in college. Gradually, I became department head, vice principal, and finally principal. I worked tirelessly late nights, grading papers, meetings, organizing extracurriculars. And under my leadership, graduation rates rose from 76% to 94%, over 80%, continuing to higher education. I wasn't just a manager, I was like a second mother to students. I knew every name, understood their struggles and family situations. Yet now all that means nothing to a newcomer. He's never stepped into a classroom, never heard students call my name, never seen the changes I made. And now he says I'm outdated, a barrier to progress. I sat staring out the window at the passing crowd, some of whom I'd helped. But what about me? Do I still have a place? Anger bubbled within. Is this really true, or just unfair insult? I recalled meetings discussing new technology adoption. I never opposed tech, but knew its limits. I'd seen young teachers eager for new software, but students overwhelmed and lost without close guidance. We can't rely solely on machines and charts, I thought. Students need people, understanding, and trust. But now I'm told I'm behind the times, a block to growth. I feel stretched between two worlds, devotion to people and pressure to change. I don't want to abandon my values nor be trapped in the past. Part of me wants to fight back, to shout that I deserve respect. But another part wants silence, dignity, and to preserve my legacy. I looked at the early retirement paper on my desk, fingers trembling, then set it down. No, I'm not ready to give up, not now. But I know I can't fight a system alone. I need a plan, a new path, a chance to prove experience still matters. My story isn't over. That night, I sat alone in my small room. The warm yellow light illuminated photos, joyful moments, thank you letters, graduation pictures, memories playing like a slow-motion film in my mind. Yet alongside those feelings was confusion, anger. Was I really outdated, as Mr. Wright said, or a pawn in a power struggle I never saw? I remembered school board meetings about tech adoption. I didn't oppose technology, but knew its limits. I had seen eager young teachers, overwhelmed students, confused and overworked without support. We can't just rely on machines, I thought. Students need human care, trust, and understanding. Now, people called me obsolete or roadblock. I felt torn between devotion and pressure to adapt. I didn't want to abandon my values, nor be trapped in the past. Part of me wanted to rebel to demand respect. Another part sought silence, dignity, and legacy. I looked at the retirement offer, fingers trembling before setting it down. No, I wasn't ready. But I needed a plan, a way to prove experience still matters. Monday morning, I woke with a mix of confusion and resolve. Wearing my navy blue suit like armor, I prepared to face what I couldn't avoid. I needed to show professionalism and strength when others wanted to see me fall. I arrived early, meeting Mr. Wright with steady eyes. He looked surprised but curious to see me unbowed. "Your decision," he asked flatly. "I accept the early retirement package," I replied firmly, looking straight at him. His eyes flickered surprise, then satisfaction. "Excellent. HR will contact you with paperwork. The board will announce your retirement at month's end. Use this time to settle things." I nodded, voice calm. "I want to tell staff personally. They deserve the truth from me." He nodded, authoritative. "Fine, but quickly. The board wants to move fast." Leaving his office, I felt relief mixed with emptiness. 20 years of dedication lifted from my shoulders. But this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one I would write with my own hands. When the Westlake doors closed behind me for the last time, a strange mix of unfamiliar freedom and loss flooded my senses. 2 decades of connection, from the first steps to principal, now packed away in boxes of memories, student photos, awards, worn textbooks. The next morning, I woke to quietness. No school bells, no rushing footsteps. Everything changed, yet a large void inside remained. Miguel, my husband, and Rock urged gently, "Diana, it's time to think about you. Travel, rest, do what you love." But my heart still echoed Westlake's calls. I tried gardening, rekindling, painting, volunteering at the library, peaceful but hollow, without laughter, and talks of students and colleagues. One rainy morning, a call from Dr. Catherine Jimenez, State Education Commissioner I'd met at conferences, changed everything. "Diana, I've followed Westlake's story. I know Mr. Wright pushed you out, but I'm calling for a new statewide education reform project. We need someone like you to lead a crucial part." I sat, stunned, hope flickering in the fog. While I adjusted to retirement, troubling news from Westlake grew. Old friends sent worried texts and calls. One afternoon, Elena Garcia, veteran math teacher and close ally, called in despair. "Diana, it's chaos here. Teachers leaving, students out of control, scores plummeting. Everyone's scared." I felt deep sadness. What I built was crumbling under inexperienced hands, rushing tech changes without foundation. Some young teachers blindly adopted new software, overwhelming students lacking proper guidance. Instead of growth, students became discouraged, learning suffered. I sat quietly, burdened but determined. This wasn't time to quit. It was time to return and protect what I had nurtured. When I got the call to return, emotions mixed, joy to be back and worry about what awaited. At the school gate, familiar walls and playground laughter greeted me, but inside things had changed. Shiny tech signs and anxious teachers showed a different story. First meeting with Mr. Wright was cold. He looked less confident, eyes tense. I faced him firmly. "I'm here not for you or to reclaim a title, but for the students and school I devoted my life to." He challenged, "You think you can fix what you left?" "I'm not fixing all, just restoring balance. Technology has a place, but can't replace education's core values." I met Brandon Peters, the new principal, young, eager, but inexperienced. We talked not to argue, but to find common ground. Only by blending experience with innovation could Westlake heal. "You're right," Brandon admitted. "I rushed change and forgot what matters, the students." This confrontation marked a new journey. I knew challenges lay ahead, but wasn't alone this time. The next day, I stood before familiar teachers, some hopeful, others wary. We changed a lot, but forgot what's most important. Technology is a great tool, but can't replace human connection students need. I promised to use technology wisely, keeping the solid education foundation. I spent time planning improvements, strengthening teaching methods, integrating tech only where needed, rebuilding teacher-student bonds. Change isn't revolution, but balance. We won't abandon the past, but refresh it to help students progress without losing core values. Brandon and I met again. Though impatient, he admitted I was too eager for change, forgetting students and teachers need time and safety. I smiled. "We'll succeed only together. This is a long journey needing all voices and unity." Determined, I knew the road ahead was tough but necessary. At the district board meeting, a modern glass building, I arrived early, ready with data and charts. Mr. Wright was present, avoiding eye contact. When it was my turn, I explained Westlake's decline was due to rushed tech and ignoring fundamentals. I showed statistics, reading scores up 10% in 3 months, attendance and participation improving. It was a start, but a hopeful direction. Board members asked thoughtful questions. I answered confidently with data and experience. Mr. Wright sat quietly, face tense. He knew the old plan failed and my approach worked. The board thanked me for honesty and urged close follow-up. I left hopeful, knowing this was no personal victory, but triumph of perseverance and care. On my last day at Westlake, the afternoon sun cast a peaceful glow. I reflected on lessons learned about persistence, faith, and staying true. There were moments I felt abandoned and pointless, but those were tests to strengthen me. Change is vital, but must not lose humanity. Tech can help, but can't replace love and understanding. Everyone has worth. Never lose faith in yourself. Sometimes you must leave the familiar to find hope and new chances. To anyone facing hardship or feeling unappreciated, keep faith, passion, and fight for what you believe. My story continues as each day brings new chances to seek meaning and true success. I believe you too can find your light in darkness and write your own story.